Hey, good morning, Metropolis. It's now 5 after the hour of 6 a.m. in the big monster city.
Come on! Let's get pumped!
I'm not drinking any fucking Merlot! What can I say? The camera loves me.
Shall we begin?
After you, Junior.
Hello, everybody. We are back. Multiplex logged it, and we've got a short panel but a fun topic: 70s actors and actresses. Should be a fun show. Bar, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a while since I've been on here, so it's just nice to be back.
Yeah, and Kirk, you're here all the time. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Excited for the topic. Excited for the panel. Should be a fun night.
Absolutely. So we'll get started with the way we always start. What was your, favorite movie you logged this week? Bar, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna go with David Cronenberg's The Fly. This is a first-time watch for me. I haven't really watched a lot recently, but it's one I kind of just wanted to watch on a whim. And I really enjoyed it. Gina Davis is slowly becoming one of my favorite actresses. Anytime I see her in anything, I think she's giving an amazing performance. And Jeff Goldblum is he's all over the place, but he's supposed to be, kind of. And he's doing everything like really well, and especially like towards the end when he's bringing a level of humanity to this character after he's just like completely deformed. It's just a tight, quick story. It's easy to digest, but also it's a really fun watch. It's a good time.
Valid. The Fly is great. Goldblum is very interesting and very fun. And I really I'm not a big Cronenberg guy, but like this is the one where like the Cronenbergness of it all, I don't think gets in the way of what I actually think is a really interesting kind of contemplation on the nature of what makes a man. So I think it's really interesting. Kirk, thoughts on The Fly?
No, great movie. I rewatched this for the first time in a long time, a year or so ago. And I love the economy of it. Bar kind of mentioned, like, it starts like there's no fat on this. It starts out like kind of during the meet cute. The two of them meet. They start talking about his project, and it goes from there. It's not that long. I think it's under an hour and a half, right? It's under 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And as soon as the main problem is resolved, credits roll. You're in, you're out. And it's really fun. Some great effects. They're both great in it. Their relationship is great. There's some genuine pathos there. It's a lot of cool monster stuff, but also like a lot of humanity that you care about and get sad about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now we will go over to Kirk. Kirk, what's your favorite movie you logged this week?
My favorite movie is a little Japanese film called Detective Bureau 2-3. Go to hell, bastards.
Is that the full title? Please.
That's the full title.
Holy shit!
And based on that, 5 stars alone. But no, it's a great movie. It stars Joe Shishido, who's a Japanese actor I've kind of discovered this year. I was trying before we came in there. I was trying to think of who the American equivalent of this guy would be. But he always plays like either the cop or the dirty cop or the criminal or the guy kind of in between, the private eye. And this one, usually most of the movies I've seen, he's a little more stoic, a little more quiet, a little more serious. This movie, he's just having fun. There's a dance number. He's singing. He's laughing. He's telling jokes. He just keeps one step ahead. He's that quippy kind of like, detective hero that we love. And it takes place in Japan in the 60s during Christmas time. And it looks like it takes place in Japan in the 60s during Christmas time. And it's great. Has a great like party go-go 60 soundtrack, a lot of cool action, a lot of fun shootouts. There's gangs with guns, there's gangs with swords. But again, it's more like it's a little more lighthearted. It's kind of a comedy. The violence never gets too crazy or out of hand. No one's ever really felt like you ever feel like anybody's like in serious danger when guys get shot. They're doing like flips and stuff like that. So it's all in good fun. And I loved it.
I've never seen it, and I'm guessing Bar has also not, but it sounds awesome. Oh, you're muted, Bar, but I'm gonna assume you just were like, "Yep, that sounds awesome."
I was literally added it to my watch list just now.
It's on Criterion.
Fair enough. Well, now we're going over to my pick, and I think I am going to go with. Yeah, Bar's going to be semi-happy about this, I think, but also I questioned his letterbox rating about this, so we'll see. But I'm going with 1937's The Awful Truth. This was a movie that was like a laugh riot, in my opinion. I just found this one so much fun and so funny. 'Cause the premise is essentially Cary Grant and Irene Dunn are getting divorced, and they have 90 days before the divorce finalizes, and in that 90-day period they're essentially trying to screw each other's prospects over, and it's very fun. This is kind of the movie that made Cary Grant, and he's perfect. But Irene Dunn is like the standout in this movie. She is like hilarious and just has like a lot of different things to do. Very fun. Liked it a lot. Yeah, Bar, I'm gonna go to you first. 3.5 stars. What the heck?
Look, I think when this movie hits, it hits really hard. When Irene Dunn and Cary Grant's chemistry just like really comes together, the comedy just like really is on fire. It's been a while since I've seen it. I did write. I had to check my letterbox. I said it drags in some bits, so I think that's like my main bit is that there are some spots that kind of just like dragged. Otherwise, as I said, hilarious when it hits.
That is your excuse for every time you give a low rating.
Sure is.
The Godfather. I fell asleep. 4.5 stars because I can't take naps. Anyway,
I shouldn't be wearing a blanket while I'm watching a
have you
movie.
seen this?
I have not seen this. This is a movie for me up till now has only existed as something that comes up when studying Oscar winners. But no, it sounds like a good movie, and I like to see more Cary Grant, so I'll check it out.
Fair enough. Well, now we're moving on to the other half of the coin. Your least favorite movie you logged this week. Bar, we're back to you.
To call this movie my least favorite is fair, but it's also kind of unfair to this movie. It's from 1982. It's called That Championship Season. I watched this movie because I love the play. It's one of my favorite plays of all time. And unfortunately, I think the movie kind of pulls back some of the punches that the play gives you. It's about these 4 guys celebrating their anniversary of their high school basketball state championship with their coach. One's a politician, one is his campaign manager, one is a businessman, and the other one is an alcoholic. And you kind of come to find that as great as these guys start the movie thinking great about themselves, they kind of realize that everything kind of starts to fall apart. Especially with the role of the coach, you kind of realize that he's not a great person, but all of these guys have depended their lives on like his advice. The main reason that this movie is as good as it kind of is are the performances, especially Stacy Keach and Bruce Stern. They're both fantastic. It's just a little disappointing. Still worth a watch, but not the best adaptation.
Yeah, I have never even heard of this. Kirk, have you seen this?
I have not.
Fair enough. We'll move on. Kirk, what's your least favorite movie you logged this week?
Sorry about that. Yeah, let me preface this by saying I've been watching a lot of movies for either shows I've already been on, already talked about, or stuff I don't want to talk about yet. So that's taking up a lot of my movie watching time. Haven't watched a lot of bad movies that I don't like, but it's logged. It's Tuesday. It's logged it. I'm on logged it, and a Marvel movie came out last weekend. So I have to keep my tradition going and say my least favorite movie of the week was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Didn't hate it. Again, like I said, I don't have it's slim pickings as far as bad movies this week, but I think I was talking to Payson yesterday, and I said My problem, it's not a Guardians problem as much as MCU problem. Just there's a lot of teased trauma and teased problems and teased, tear jerkers and kind of mess with you. And the whole time I'm waiting this, and I'm hearing people, I cried 4 or 5 times. I have no emotional connection to any of this because maybe they'll die, maybe they won't. It doesn't matter either way because it's the MCU. And if they die, they'll be back. Maybe through magic, maybe through time travel, maybe through the multiverse, who knows? But there's no consequences, nothing permanent in these movies. So everything's everybody's completely nerfed. And just the way the story, all the stories they force into this. Remember Peter Quill's grandfather from the first 3 minutes of Guardians 1 that never gets mentioned again in the next 2 movies? He, for some reason, is at the beginning of this brought up, thrown in Peter Quill's face, you abandoned your grandfather. And that's what I've talked about again for the rest of the movie until it's resolved at the end. It's just a lot of stuff like that, just too much. The movie's almost 2.5 hours long and you feel it. A lot of weird things going on. It'll never not be hilarious to me that you have to watch the Guardians Christmas special as homework for this major tentpole release. If you didn't watch a Christmas special, hey, Mantis and Peter Quill are brother and sister. Check out Disney Plus. The Guardians own Nowhere.
That is explained in Guardians Volume 2.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it was because I didn't see the special and I did not bat an eye to that.
They treated it as a surprise. I haven't seen Guardians 2 for a while, but they treated it as a big reveal in the Christmas
for whatever
special.
reason, when I saw it, I was not surprised at all. So maybe it had been mentioned elsewhere, outside of the films, and that's why.
But anyways, still a lot of stuff like that. And again, like I said, it wasn't a terrible movie. I didn't hate sitting there watching it. There was a lot of entertainment. It was a lot of fun stuff. But again, just that MCU, hey, maybe somebody will die and maybe it'll matter. And no, that's not the case at all. So again, I'm kind of just checking out on the MCU in general. So don't mean to dump on the Guardians, but that's the movie that came out this week.
Yeah. I disagree with you, but the reasons I disagree with you, I can't talk about because they're spoiler specific. But I think there's a reason. I usually do have that problem with MCU stuff, Kirk, but I think for me, there was kind of a reason why I didn't have that problem. But again, we'll talk about it after the show. Overall, I really dug it. This was the movie that kind of just made me realize how much of an emotional connection I have to the Guardians as characters. Just because I was 14 when the first one out, I was 17 when the second one came out. I've kind of grown up with these movies, and I just found this one just kind of was one of those movies that just hit at the right time. Especially, I haven't really cared about the MCU lately. I didn't see Ant-Man. I haven't seen a lot of I haven't had a passion for a lot of the MCU, so it's just this hit for me. And yeah, I also just felt like I didn't need to have seen the holiday special because I didn't, and there was nothing that confused me. But fair. Bar, did you see this one yet?
Not yet.
Fair enough. Well, then we will move on to me for my least favorite movie I logged this week. Probably should have had this prepared, but that's okay. I think I know what I'm going with. I'm going to go with a rewatch because I need to point something out. First time in 3-4 times on Logged It that my pick for worst movie of the week is not a Best Supporting Actress winner. Yay. Congrats to National Velvet for not being awful. That's the one I watched this week. Congrats to that. Instead, the movie I watched this week, which is not good, and everybody knows it's not good, 2003's Brother Bear. I've seen this movie way too many times, and I still don't have a good time with it. I'm going through the Disneys again with Isabel, and neither of us had a good time with this one. So, yeah. It's bad. The animation is cool, I guess. I like Phil Collins, so I like the songs. But yeah, no, not a fan. Bar, have you seen Brother Bear?
No, but I've listened to the soundtrack.
Fair enough. Kirk?
This is what I missed.
I will use that time then to just tell you what I will always associate this movie with, which is when I was 4 years old, seeing this in the theater, and for whatever reason, we decided to exit out instead of exit out like the main way, because it was like the theater was in a mall. So if you went out like the regular exit, you have to like go through the mall in order to leave. And we just wanted to get out of there. So my mom and I went through like just the exit that's kind of like towards the screen. And for whatever reason, the actual outdoor was locked. And the indoor was locked behind us. So we got trapped in this little hallway. And so that is what I will always associate the 2003 film Brother Bear with.
Feeling trapped while watching it?
Being traumatized as a 4-year-old. Well, it was after the movie had finished, but yes. So anyway.
Could you still hear like the sound of Phil Collins played in the theater as you were like desperately trying to escape?
No, the movie was over. So,
no, I'm talking about like the end credits. Were the credits still rolling?
I think we had stayed for the credits. We specifically did stay for the credits because there were post-credit scenes.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe not post, but it's like scenes during the credits. So I think we like stayed during the credits. My mom also has a weird. My mom has a weird thing where she likes to stay for the credits because she likes to note who the gaffer and the key grip are.
Shout out to the gaffer and the key grips in the industry.
Purely just because she wants to and she thinks that's a neat thing to do.
That could be her Warzone strength.
Yeah. Remember when Holtzman tried to use a sound designer?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Jay Burns got so mad. He got so mad. And then Jake was like, well, if Holtzman can do that, I want to use movies under 16% that are video game movies on Rotten Tomatoes. And Cody was pissed, so he let Jake do it.
I forgot he let him do it.
Yeah, no. So anyway, 70s actors and actresses, bar your first pick.
I kind of want to go unconventional with my first pick, because there's a few people that like obviously are going to come up, and they should come up. But one person I do want to highlight is somebody who I genuinely think was a comedic genius in their timing, in their physicality. And I want to bring up Madeline Kahn. Her performances in the 70s were just so funny. Even in Paper Moon, where it's a little bit more of a serious movie, her timing is just so effing good in there.
Bar, I'm just going to stop you right in the middle of that. You have a movie. I realize I didn't mention we should probably have a movie to decide, like assign all of these people to so that we can put them on the letterbox list at the end of it. Okay. So that's my bad. That's not either your fault. That's just my fault for not doing that because I realized Tim has to make the letterbox list. So we should probably pick. We're still talking about the actors, but just pick a movie.
Sure. Let me see here just real fast. The movie I'm going to go with is, you know what? She's not the main person in this, but she's kind of the character that I remember the most in this movie. And I'm going to go with What's Up, Doc?
Okay.
She steals the scene anytime that she's on screen in this movie. And this is one of Barbra Streisand's best performances. I think that she's really funny in this movie. But Madeline Kahn is just on fire with a character that could be completely unbearable. And her performances in the 70s, even so, I have not seen At Long Last Love or The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. But you've got Paper Moon, What's Up, Doc, Blazing Saddles, and Young Frankenstein. And if I'm going to be really cheap, which I will be, the Muppet movie, where she appears for like 30 seconds.
If that,
yeah. But her run, even in High Anxiety, that's actually still pretty good as well. She just had a really strong collection of movies in the 70s.
Yeah, no, Madeline Kahn rules. I absolutely like one of the great comedic powerhouses. You know, the 70s was kind of the 70s comedy scene was kind of the start of actually allowing women to be like funny again. Like, because like, you know, the 30s you get that, but then it kind of seems like after the 30s, like especially the comedies going into the 50s and most of the 60s, the women were just kind of the foil. There are exceptions to that, but they're kind of forced into either being love interest or just fuddy-duddy. And there's no real in between. Where Madeline Kahn actually gets to be silly and fun, and like you look at Blazing Saddles, like that is just a ridiculous character, and she is so funny and she sells it. And yeah, I really love her in What's Up, Doc. I'm really glad you brought that up because I think she is so funny in that movie. Yeah, great pick. Kirk, thoughts on Madeline Kahn?
No, not something I thought of, but it is a really good pick. Her career has lasted so long that I don't necessarily, focus on her 70s stuff, but looking at she had a lot of great 70s movies. And, even like Boris said, even stuff that she wasn't necessarily one of the main characters and more supporting, she does really good work. And yeah, she's just one of those, kind of like one of those throwbacks, like one of those actresses who can do it all. She's like, she's an entertainer. She's like a pure, like old school entertainer. And I've always even stuff like I don't love Clue. I'm kind of like I think that's well known that I'm not a big fan of Clue, but I think she's good at it. I think she probably does the best with what she understands the assignment in that movie better, I think, than anybody.
Yeah, completely valid. Well, Kirk, we're over to you. What's your first pick?
Okay, yeah. So coming in, I assumed I was only going to have 2 picks. So I wanted to pick an actor and an actress and maybe, pick some people that I don't talk about too often. So I will do my actress first.
And you'll get 3 picks and
sure, yeah.
Somebody will get a 4th pick.
Yeah.
I would assume Bar because he got here first between the movies.
I have an idea for how to handle that. But
okay, that's fine.
My first pick is going to be Faye Dunaway. And my movie is Network. She is somebody else. You're talking about like a throwback. Like she has, if you took Faye Dunaway and put her in like a movie from the early 40s, like she would fit right in. She has, it's funny, she played Joan Crawford, but she has like that old Hollywood kind of look and style and just kind of attitude of one of those like powerhouse actresses from that time. But she's bringing it in. She's bringing the sensibility and the feeling and the skill and the talent that you see in the new Hollywood stuff in the 70s. She has Network. She has Bonnie and Clyde. 3 Days of the Condor. Just everything she's in. You just connect to her. You're drawn to her. Even in Network, where she plays a really despicable person. You're drawn to that character. She comes out and tells you right away, like, I'm a terrible person. Like, this is just who I am. I don't care about people. And you're like, okay. Mm-hmm. And you totally buy, when he falls for her. Cause it's like, yeah, like she just has that kind of magnetism to her. Bonnie and Clyde, she's playing a criminal and you're in love with her. Even she has a small part in Little Big Man. And she's really good again. There's kind of like, period pieces I feel like she really excels in. So yeah, I just think, she won the Oscar for Network, and I think she just has, and I want to look up, there's a couple other movies I'm forgetting that I wanted to talk about. Chinatown obviously is another, one where she's great. And again, brings that kind of gravitas to it, plays a character who's going through a really hard time. Similar to in, dang, it was The Champ. Not a great movie, but I think she's really good in it. Again, she plays that same kind of person she does in Chinatown, who's like has that like, that separation from family, and she's doing parent-child stuff and everything. So yeah, she plays those roles really great. And every time she shows up in a movie in this era, you're like I said, she is just what you zone in automatically.
Yeah, great pick. I really agree with what you said that like she fits in so well into that like 1940s like classic film star, vibe. And like that's part of the reason why Chinatown works so well. She is just, there are some castings that it's just like this is eerily perfect how well this person works into this particular era. Like Mark Ruffalo in Zodiac, it's like this guy just feels like such like a 1970s person. And yeah, Faye Dunaway in Chinatown just feels like she just walked straight from the 1940s. So yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, great network, great in a lot of things. Great pick. Bar, thoughts on Faye Dunaway?
Nah, she's fantastic, and she had like a hell of a run in the 70s. Like in a row, it's like the Three Musketeers, Chinatown, then the sequel to Three Musketeers, but then the Towering Inferno, 3 Days of the Condor, and Network, like all in a row. Yeah, and you picked the movie I probably would have picked. It would have been between that and Chinatown. Yeah, no, she's amazing.
Yeah, fantastic pick. Well, now we are over to me. And I am purposely drowning out my sentences so I can stall and make my final decision. And I think I know what I'm going with. I'm not going with necessarily, one of my all-time favorite, 70s guys, but I think I'm going with a guy who was, I think, at his best in the 1970s. And I think that his 70s run is just such like an incredible movie star run that it's hard to deny. And he was in one of the movies that Kirk brought up, Robert Redford. And I'm specifically going with The Sting. But I could easily go with All the President's Men or The Candidate or 1972, because he does The Candidate, The Hot Rock, and Jeremiah Johnson, which is a meh movie, but he's good in it, all in the same year. But The Sting, I think, is just kind of the essence of the Redford charm, just kind of distilled. He's just so good in that. But he's great in All the President's Men. There's a great scene where it's him on the phone talking to the guy, and in the background all the other reporters are watching the primary results, and his moment there is so good. He's just kind of one of the ultimate movie stars. Anyway, Bar, thoughts on Robert Redford?
Nah, this is a great pick. If there was a, this would still be the decade I would pick overall for Robert Redford. His charisma.
So big Legal Eagles guy, you're going 80s?
You bet your sweet Bippy, buddy. His charisma just leaps off the screen, especially in this movie, which may be my overall favorite Robert Redford performance.
Kirk?
Yeah, I think it's hard for us to understand people who didn't grow up in this era and who know him from his 80s work and his later stuff when he was kind of not as big a name, how big a movie star this guy was in the 70s. You hear people from the era talk about Robert Redford, and it's I don't know if maybe Tom Cruise might be the closest thing we have now, but just how ubiquitous he was and how he was the guy. I was watching The Offer last week, and they kept talking about, the producers all wanted Robert Redford to play Michael Corleone. He was just the guy you went to. Maybe Leo's that guy now, I think, where he's the first person you get for everything. But I still think Redford was bigger than him. But yeah, so many great movies. Smaller stuff that's people really don't talk about. The Candidate, he's really good. Great Waldo Pepper, he's really good in. So even the smaller roles, he just really ate those up. But yeah, he has that natural charm and charisma. Just always, his characters always seem to be just real kind of easygoing, and but he still has that power behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now we will go back over to Bar. Bar, what's your second pick?
I don't see why I would not pick Dustin Hoffman for the 70s. This is just one of the greatest decades for an actor, I think. With Kramer versus Kramer, oh my god, I completely blanked on the name of the goddamn movie now. All the President's Men. It's just a really, really solid decade from Lenny probably being one of his best performances. Looking back on it now, yeah, it's such a great decade for an actor.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal decade. Like, yeah, like you brought up Lenny. That's my favorite Dustin Hoffman performance. I think he's phenomenal in it. Yeah, like he and Redford just have a perfect back and forth in All the President's Men. And I always go back and forth in terms of who's the better performance in that movie because they're both so good. And like you get like Redford's a little bit more reserved, but Hoffman just wears everything out there, and he is so good. And it's that great back and forth with Ned Beatty. Yeah, like Hoffman is just so great. Fantastic pick. Kirk, thoughts on Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah, this is one of the first names you got to think about when you think of the 70s. Just looking at the range, like his range as an actor, I think he's like, we talk about Dustin Hoffman. I don't think we talk about enough what a great actor he is. Like if you look at him, something like Lenny, and then All the President's Men, where he's playing these more like kind of forceful characters. But then you have like Straw Dogs, where he's like this just complete pushover milquetoast guy, or Papillion, where he's like this nerdy little, bookish guy. Just so many different things. Little Big Man, where he plays the old guy who, and then does the flashbacks and everything. But yes, so many different roles he had in the 70s. I mean, I can't think of too many. Count on one hand the actors who may have had as strong a decade as he did.
Yeah, completely valid. Well, now we go over to you, Kirk. What's your second pick?
I am going to go with, and I'm taking my time so I can bring his information up. I'm going to do my actor. And again, I want to talk to somebody about somebody I haven't necessarily talked about a lot. And this is somebody who I've, over the past couple of years, have really started to discover their work from this period. He's one of those actors where he's famous to the current generations for his work as an older man. And a lot of people don't think about him when he was younger and what he did. But in the 1970s, Elliot Gould was on fire. And for my movie, I'm going to go with, let me pick one here. I'll go with The Long Goodbye for Elliot Gould. But yeah, Long Goodbye, MASH, Can You Flinch Spit, Capricorn 1, Busting. I just love he's one of those guys who's always kind of playing the same character. He has that same kind of personality, but it's always so great. And it fits in, whether it's like a sci-fi movie like Capricorn 1, or it's a crime movie or a war movie, like you could always fit the Elliot Gould character in it. He's just such a perfect personification of like that 70s attitude. Like in The Long Goodbye, he just plays Marlowe, just so schlubby and just, doesn't really care and just kind of wandering through life. And I just love his attitude, has a great look, has a great voice. And like I said, he's somebody like I knew him, growing up. I knew him as Monica and Ross's dad on Friends. And I think now everybody knows him from, Ocean's 11. But if you go back, he was just killing it in the 70s. His roles were great, but he also picked great movies. Like he was just banger after banger after banger he's putting out. And also I will say once again, I think this applies to a lot of actors in the 70s. Great Muppet movie cameo.
That is true. Elliot Gould would have been my next pick. He's great, and his 70s run is very good. Two movies that I don't think you brought up unless I missed them. I really liked The Silent Partner, and I thought he was very good in that. And I also really like California Split. I was on California Split, the movie. I loved him in California Split, and I think he plays off Siegel very well. You're kind of right. Kind of plays the same character, but he's very good at playing that specific character. So, great pick. And his Marlowe is definitely my favorite Marlowe.
Yeah.
Bar, go ahead.
I'm going to be honest. I've seen 3 Elliot Gould movies from the 70s. 1 being the Muppet movie, 2 being Nashville, and 3 being The Silent Partner. So I
Two of those are cameos.
exactly. So I really can't. I wish I could say more on Elliot Gould during the 70s. So
That's your next deep dive bar.
I guess so.
Well, anyway, we are now over to me, and I have to try to figure out what my next pick should be because Kirk was annoying and took mine.
He
You
does that
know,
sometimes.
yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna take one of the obvious ones. So I'm going to take option A, B, or C. I'll take door number one, and I'll go with Jackie Boy. I'm going with Jack Nicholson, and I think if I'm going, I'm not going to take the uber obvious performance, though that's fantastic. I'm going to go with 5 Easy Pieces. I think that is like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Like, it's also just phenomenal acting, but he has a scene towards the end of 5 Easy Pieces that is some of the greatest singular acting I have ever seen put in film, where he just breaks down next to his father, and it is just phenomenal. But that whole run in the 70s, like we brought up Chinatown already tonight, and he's great in that, but like he's so good in The Last Detail, and obviously One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I really like him in Carnal Knowledge. Like, I think Nicholson is just always great, and especially in the 70s, it's just like prime Nicholson, because he doesn't quite have like that movie star like attitude to him yet. So he's still kind of doing these roles that like stretch him. He's really trying to be like an actor's actor. And then you get to the 80s where he's still great, but he's doing more of these kind of bloated roles a little bit, where it seems to have a little bit more ego to it. Whereas the 70s stuff, just that you get to see a little bit more of his range, and it's great. Bar, thoughts on Jack Nicholson?
First of all, I think Jack Nicholson's just one of the best actors to have ever worked on screen. So it kind of doesn't matter what decade you put him into. But you brought up Cardinal Knowledge. I don't like that movie as much as a lot of other people do, but he is easily one of the 2 best parts of that movie. I even like him in Tommy. He's been in it for like one scene, but that one scene he appears in, it's just really good. And of course, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it's one of my favorite performances of all time. So there's no way that I'm not going to support you on picking Jack Nicholson. I'd be an idiot.
Fair. Kirk?
Yeah, another. I mentioned the count on one hand for Dustin Hoffman. This is one of them. Nicholson is just, I mean, this is, I think, his prime. He did a lot of good work in the '80s, but I think like you said, like he gets a little more that Jack kind of persona in the '80s. In the '60s, he was still doing like the Roger Corman stuff. This is where he just really starts to sink his teeth into it, his into the profession and into the craft. Even like movie, I don't think anybody mentioned Last Tycoon. Again, not a great movie. But the scenes he's in are just fire. Like, they're great. Like, as soon as he shows up and it's him and De Niro together, just gold. Every second they're on screen together is gold. But yeah, I mean, Cuckoo's Nest, Chinatown. Even before, like I said, he leans more into that persona later in his career, but it's there now, and it's just like, it's perfect. Again, I mean, he has a lot of range, plays a lot of different characters, but he always brings that kind of same Nicholson energy to every role he plays. And he's always firing on all thrusters.
Completely valid. So now we go back over to Bar. Bar, your third pick.
So I'm going to pick someone who may not have had like the greatest like movie track record of the 70s, but his performance is amazing and one of the greatest 3 movie runs I've ever seen in my life. I'm going to go with Robert Shaw, and I'm going to pick Jaws as my movie. Because you had The Sting, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and Jaws just back to back to back. And he's always one of the people that you watch those movies and you go, man, he was like so good, wasn't he? even in films like Black Sunday, which I've not seen, but I've heard that he's really great in. He's one of the main things I remember the most about Robin and Marion. He's just had an ability to command the screen, and I don't think I've seen a lot of other character actors kind of hold that the way that he did.
Yeah, this is a great pick. I'm on record as loving Robert Shaw and pretty much whatever he does, and I think his performance in Jaws should have not only been nominated that year, should have won that year. He's that good. You don't agree with me. You didn't have Robert Shaw in your top 100,
and I had admitted it was a mistake.
But you had Brad Dourif.
I did have Brad Dourif. You're right, though.
So don't pretend to agree with me. Anyway, I think that Robert, and you look at when he's always great at being intimidating, but he's intimidating in different ways, right? Like in Jaws, he's just in your face intimidating. In The Sting, he's very reserved and calculated. And then somewhere in between, you have the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. So he's always great. Kirk, thoughts on Robert Shaw?
No, great pick. Like you said, he doesn't have the biggest filmography in the 70s, but I think he did, maybe 3 of his best movies. He's terrifying in Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3. And I think him and Walter Matthau, even though they're never on screen time, I think they play off each other so well. But he is one of the all-time great crime movie scary villains in that film. And then you see something like in Robin Marion, it's a little different, the kind of role he plays. And there's a lot of, again, we're sticking to the 70s, but you see all the range throughout his career. But yeah, I mean, he just steals that third act in Jaws. That becomes his movie. And that's tough because he's with 2 really other great actors with a great script. So, I will never say. I mean, I'm just looking at his other stuff. Again, I've only seen those 4 movies the bar mentioned. But there's if you told him Force 10 from Navarone, this sounds awesome. I mean, just he's that kind of guy where he just plays he's in all those 70s kind of B-ish action movies. And like I said, I haven't seen them, but I'd watch them, and I'm sure they're great.
Yeah. So Kirk, back over to you. What's your third pick?
Okay. I'll do the obvious one. I mean, the one person that's been on this list, El Pacino. And I'll go Dog Day for my movie. And yeah, El Pacino in the 70s, you have Godfather 1, you have Godfather 2, you have Serpico, you have Dog Day, and you have And Justice for All. I mean, I can't think of an actor who has a decade with 5 just massive. I mean, the movies themselves may not have been necessarily hits, but just as far as 5 amazing performances in all 5 of those movies, he's so good. The only one I haven't seen from the 70s, I think, is Bobby Darefield, because it's really not available anywhere. But in these 5 movies, he's so fantastic and just shows so much range. It drives me crazy. And I know it's easy to say now, again, people don't maybe remember, who know El Pacino now, don't remember El Pacino or don't think of El Pacino from the 70s. But the amount of range he had as an actor, you watch Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 and you watch Dog Day, those are 2 completely different human beings. Those are not the same person. And just what he brings to every role, every performance. And again, he's another one who picks fantastic movies. All those movies are really good. And, he's a big part of why they're so great, but he picks the best possible scripts. Panic at Needle Park 2, I didn't mention. That's his first major starring role. He's great in that too. It's not a movie a lot of people have seen or talk about. But you see where everyone saw that star power in him right off the bat.
Yeah, fantastic pick. I mean, this is the correct pick for the decade. You can argue Hoffman or Nicholson or maybe De Niro, but I think this is probably the one that comes to most people's mind first, and rightly so, because his 70s run is just so unmatched. And also, it's just, then you look at not that the rest of his career was bad, but it just does not touch the gold that he hit in the 70s. Like it's nowhere near it. So it also makes me kind of sad. But yeah, just so many hits and just always just energy bursting off the screen. Great pick. Bart?
Boatman brought up my top 100 performances list before. I think I have Pacino on there 3 times, and it was for The Godfather, Dog Day, and Justice for All. Like these are 3 of the greatest performances I've ever seen. And you guys are right. This is the pick for this decade. There's no denying that.
Mm-hmm. Well, now we go over to me again. And I am going to go with, I just had it, and then what was I going to pick? Oh, yes. I'm going to go with Diane Keaton, I think is an actress who was just pretty much great in whatever she did in the 70s. I've kind of brought up I don't know if I've ever actually said this, but when I've watched a few Fred Astaire movies and I've watched Ginger Rogers movies and I've watched them together. And the thing that I realized about that duo was that Ginger Rogers was doing all the heavy lifting. And just by standing next to Fred Rogers, Fred Rogers. Standing next to Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire seemed way more impressive because that's how good Ginger Rogers was. And that's pretty much how like the Woody Allen Diane Keaton dynamic is in the 70s. Like she is just so magnetic, and a lot of those 70s movies that she's in, the best moments are the ones that focus most on her. And Annie Hall, I think, is easily her best performance. But like you get stuff like Love and Death. I think it's not a great movie, but anytime she's on screen, it's great. Of course, we've brought up The Godfathers already tonight, but she is so good working with Al Pacino, and that she's just so good basically no matter what she does. Bar, thoughts on Diane Keaton?
So Diane Keaton is an actress who I surprisingly, I was just double checking myself. I've not seen a lot of her work. But the stuff I have seen her in, The Godfather, Godfather Part 2, obviously. Even though I don't like love the movie, she's so good in Play It Again, Sam. So an actress that I'd love to do more of a deeper dive into. But the ones I've seen her in, she's great.
Fair, Kirk.
Yeah, like I think you're right. You kind of hit the nail on the head. She's a great utility player. She comes in and just really does the job she needs to do. I rewatched The Godfather over the weekend, and she does not have a lot of screen time in that movie. But she makes the most of it. I mean, even like those little scenes like where she comes in, when Michael's in Sicily and she talks to Tom and is trying to get the letter to him, like little scenes like that. She's so good because she has to do so much. Like it'd be very easy to be like, oh, woe is me kind of, female character that's, just pining for her man. But I mean, there's kind of like a strength behind it that she brings to it. And, obviously, she gets a lot more to do in the second one, but in that first one, she does so much with her scenes with Pacino and the little parts she gets with everybody else, where, you think about those bigger roles and those bigger parts, but she's bringing a lot to those scenes as well.
Completely valid. Well, now I think we just have one more pick left. Kirk, what was your idea?
I kind of blew it because I was going to see if we all agreed just it should be Pacino. But
we want to just make that same call, but with De Niro?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Do we want to just say Taxi Driver for the sake of simplicity?
Taxi Driver.
Works.
Godfather Part 2 as well, but Taxi Driver.
I'd vote Taxi Driver.
Yeah, let's get Scorsese on the list.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I'll start this off. I think De Niro and Taxi Driver and the 70s also just one of those ones. I don't know if the 70s is his best decade. It might be, but like he's just like the 80s, he's very good. Like the 80s, you get Raging Bull, you get King of Con. 80s might actually be his best decade. I'm not sure. He's just kind of great all the time. Well, not all the time, because you get the 2010s was poo, but still, most of the time, 90, 80% of the time, it works every time. So anyway, De Niro. Mark?
Yeah, no. Just like, I don't like Mean Streets that much. I think it's good Scorsese, but it's not like when Scorsese really started to get the ball rolling. It was like the catalyst almost. But De Niro is the best part of that movie, in my opinion. And then obviously The Godfather Part 2. He's great in The Deer Hunter. That the obvious scene shows how good he is, once again, even though I'm not crazy about it. But man, he's just so good in Taxi Driver and The Godfather Part 2. Like, just literally the scene at the end of the shootout in Taxi Driver. Yeah, he's just amazing.
Yeah. Kirk?
Yeah, I'm glad we hit them all. We got Nicholson, Hoffman, Pacino, and De Niro. Those are the four that I think definitely need to be talked about here. So I'm glad we got it all. But yeah, again, talk about range. You go from, you got Taxi Driver, but you also got Godfather Part 2. You got Mean Streets. And then you got a movie like Bang the Drum Slowly, where he plays a completely different type of character and kind of like is in a supporting role. Michael Moriarty is the main character that he kind of takes a little bit of a back seat there. But still is just so great, and just you see like the talent and the dedication he has. And I think obviously as he got older, we talk about the 2000s kind of maybe late 2000s and then 2010s kinds of trails off, but just the strength he had, the power, the charisma, and everything he brought to the table as an actor in the 70s is just it's all. I mean, I think I prefer Pacino, but De Niro is just right there with him as far as just the amount of acting ability that was on screen in that decade.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, that does end it for that portion of the show. To recap, our picks were Madeline Kahn, What's Up Talk, Faye Dunaway in Network, Robert Redford, The Sting, Dustin Hoffman, Elliot Gould, Jack Nicholson, Robert Shaw, Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, and Robert De Niro. But before we go, we have one more thing. Kirk, you already talked about Last Action Hero last week, right?
No, I was not here. I could talk about it.
Oh, you weren't here. Okay, I'm just mixed up then. Anyway, so you haven't talked about Last Action Hero yet?
I have not.
Okay. Then we'll just get started talking about Last Action. Bard, did you get a chance to watch it?
I did.
Okay. And Kirk, I assume you did too?
I haven't rewatched it. I've watched it recently enough I could talk about it.
Okay, cool. But I'll get the jump start on it because I had never seen this. And I liked it a lot. I had issues with it, but I think it's a fun spoof of like that 80s, 90s action era. It's really fun, and I think it's really unique that it's a spoof. It's kind of like if James Whale made Young Frankenstein. Like getting this directed by John McTiernan and written by Shane Black. It's like really unique that it's a spoof of a genre made by two people who basically built that genre. Like it's really unique in a way because of that. And I think there are a lot of cool little details. I think it gets kind of the set. Once we actually leave the film world, I think the movie takes kind of a lesser turn for me a little bit, though there are still some fun moments like, Arnie playing the fictionalized, not Jack Slater, but actually playing the fictionalized version of himself. I actually think is super fun, like plugging Planet Hollywood, especially someone who knows that basically the only thing about Planet Hollywood was that it was a spectacular failure. That was very funny to me. And also like Ian McKellen, of course, rules. But overall, I found the film kind of took a dive but maybe that's just because I was kind of having a real fun time in the actual action movie world. I think that was kind of unique and really fun. and all the cameos and the meta humor was pretty fun. Overall, fun time. The main child actor could have been better. I think you could maybe get, in that era, but I don't want to pick on him too much. But anyway, 3.5 out of 5 for me. Fun time. Bar, thoughts on Last Action Hero?
We're kind of close in this, where I think that there's a lot of really great elements, and then there are some things that are kind of just like, that was okay. This is my second time watching it. The first time I had watched it was when I think Jacoby had brought it up on YLS movies that deserve a remake. And yeah, like Schwarzenegger is really great in this. I love Charles Dance. His character in this is actually genuinely a really interesting villain and a really great performance. I also wanted to shout out Frank McRae, the guy who plays like the angry lieutenant chief character. Just some of the things that he had to yell were so ludicrous, but he does it so genuinely. He's hilarious. But yeah, it got a lot of real good creative moments and just a lot of moments that kind of just like I shrugged my shoulders at. But 3.5 stars.
Yeah. And Kirk?
Yeah, I really enjoy this movie. I enjoy this movie, I should say. It's fun. I think it accomplishes what it sets out to do. Like you said, having McTiernan and Black involved, I think is the perfect way to do it. The stuff in the movie world is fun. Gets a little wonky. Like I have trouble understanding like the rules of the universe, where you have like Terminator show up, and then you have like the cartoon cat. Like, is that always existing in the Schwarzenegger movies? Like, that's where it loses me a little bit. But yeah, and then I think it's really I like the ending. I think the ending is fun. So I think it's accomplished what it sets out to do is like it's PG-13, a little more like kid family friendly. But I think if this movie would have been rated R, and they really would have let McTiernan and Black just off the hook, and the real world stuff would have been like a little bit more real world with real world like effects and consequences, I think this would be like the action movie of Scream, or the Scream of action movies. Like we would talk about this movie all the time as like how it like talked about action movies, but I think it was held back a little bit by the rating and the fact that they had a kid protagonist, more focused on kids. But that wasn't what it was trying to do. I think that's a great idea for give this a remake, because I think there's a lot of potential there. But no, still I think it's a pretty solid movie. I gave it 3.5 stars.
Valid. Well, that concludes that portion of the show. So it is time to get out of there. Thank you to Bar, thank you to Kirk, thank you to everyone at home for watching. This has been Multiplex Logged It, and we will see you all later. Have a good one.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening.